My name is Paul Sears. I'm Dean of the College of Business, and I'm very pleased to welcome you to our spring semester visiting executive, Mr. Jack Ruscilli. As chairman of Ruscilli Construction Company, Jack's major focus is on oversight of customer satisfaction and the Ruscilli way, which is a doctrine that governs the company and serves as a reminder to all its employees of the characteristics to be exemplified by and expected of all associates. He also serves as project executive on special client projects. Mr. Ruscilli joined the firm on a full-time basis after graduating from Findlay College in 1966 with a degree in marketing. He started as a salesman and soon introduced the company's clients to a new concept called design build, which is a concept of construction with Ruscilli acting as a single source responsibility, which has transformed the construction industry. Since then, he has guided the company's growth from a small contractor to one of the Midwest's largest full-service general construction and construction management companies. With that, let's welcome Mr. Jack Ruscilli.
Thank you, Paul. Am I working? Can you hear me the back row? No? You can hear me? Great. Well, thank you, Paul. In fact, did a nice job giving my speech. Do we have any questions? No, seriously, I would like to thank you. It's been really a great opportunity to be able to come back and talk to some of the various student groups. It's been a lot of fun. I just hope they're getting as much out of it as I am. You know, it's a little eerie to come back to your alma mater and be in a building that I think we had, chapel here. I remember taking exams here that I wasn't very well prepared for. So this room itself is just a little bit spooky to me. This afternoon, I've been asked to give you a brief history of our business career that started right here at Findlay College. But first I gotta mention that, you know, Findlay College wasn't my first choice. As a senior in high school, all college meant to me was the opportunity to go someplace and be able to keep playing football. And being born and raised in Columbus, Ohio, there's only one thing you can ever think about, and that's going to Ohio State University and being a Buckeye. Well, Woody Hayes didn't quite see it that way. You know, there was a time when Woody went to one of our games and he asked to see me and a fellow teammate of mine. And I must have looked a whole lot bigger in a football uniform. Because when, when I got there, I can keenly remember he looked at me, 6 feet, 170 pounds, and he looked at my friend who was 6'5", 265, no stomach. And I vividly remember him looking up at him, down at me, and up at him, back down at me, and he comes over and puts his arm around me and says, "Son, you're gonna have to grow up some more before you can play here." I mean, I was absolutely crushed. He made me so mad that from then on I was eating bananas and drinking milkshakes between meals. That summer when I worked in the field crews for the company, I was on the masonry crew and the steel crew doing everything I could to bulk myself up. And by the time I came to Findlay to play football, I was still 6 feet, but I was 195 pounds with a 31-inch waist. And I was ready to take on anything you wanted to bring my way at the time. But that summer, I gotta grab my tool here, after one of our two-a-day practices, I discovered in Findlay something in Findlay, that would change my life forever. I was at the laundromat, and I ran out of change. So I walked on down just probably half a block to what was the North Side Pharmacy. And I walked in, and what did I see right in front of me but this great-looking brunette that instantly took up to talk about it. She captured my heart. And yes, I was trapped by a townie. There was no question about it. But in fact, did it come on? There we go. Today, she's still that great-looking brunette, and the mother of 4 children, grandmother of 9 grandchildren. 2 of still are driving right now, and I just want to publicly say thank you, dear, for all that you've done for me, because this has been a collaboration, believe me. When I'm out there busily working, sometimes she's had the other end. She's had to take care of things at home by herself too many times. And I'd like to thank Findlay for being that conduit that brought the 2 of us together. And I'd like to tell you another story that kind of relates to the importance of Findlay. After my sophomore year, I got it in my head that I needed to go to a bigger, more important school than Findlay. And the next fall, I signed up for the next quarter at Ohio State University. I wasn't there 2 weeks before I realized what a big mistake I had made. When you go to a new school, you got to take all their general requirements. And I swear Ohio State devised theirs to weed out the weak immediately. Because every class I went to was either in a big auditorium looking at a monitor that the professor was teaching on, or it was being taught by some foreign student assistant that I could barely understand. And I wasn't that good of a student to start with to be able to put up with this. And I just said to myself, what am I doing here? At Findlay, I had a professor in absolutely every course. Most of them knew me by name, and they cared what was going to happen to me. So guess what? I dropped out. I spent the rest of the year working on the field crews, anxiously awaiting for when I could return to Findlay the next fall and be closer to Ann as well. Well, at Findlay, I was pretty much an average student at best. I had a lot of part-time jobs and summer jobs. I did everything from selling Cutco knives door to door to assistant manager at the L&K, I don't know if it still is, across from the high school, to working for Hancock Asphalt and Paving. And every one of them gave me great experiences in sales and learning how to work with people. When I was a junior, they said, you got to pick a major. And I had no idea what I wanted to do. And I went to the library, I vividly remember, and I found this magazine on executives, what their titles were. They were mostly CEOs, what they did, what their majors were, and what their salaries were. Well, I noticed in looking this over that business and marketing majors were doing pretty good. In fact, they were leading the pack in what I could read, and I said, I'm a marketing major. And I know our professors, that's not the exact way that you want us to see us pick our majors. But in my case, I think it was the Holy Ghost leading me down to find that article. Because I had no idea that I would ever come into the construction business. You see, as a kid growing up, I was always given every dirty, nasty job there was. I can always remember my father yelling when something would come up, give it to Jack. This will teach him to go to school and get a good job. So furthest thing in my mind was ever to come into construction. As it turns out, I could never have made a better decision. Today, if I'd known what we were going to do, I would probably went into architectural and engineering studies. And today, the company's got lots of architects and engineers that I've hired. They're great at what they do, and we have to have them in our business. But the well-rounded business education and liberal arts education that I received at Findlay gave me a much better background for what I needed to do in the profession that I was going into. The classes I took, especially in sales and marketing, accounting, and advertising in particular, were just perfect for providing the basics that I needed to be a businessman. And you don't learn that in architecture or engineering school. Now, for those of you who probably don't know the Ruscilli companies very well, I'm going to give you a very brief overview of the history of Ruscilli Construction Company and some of the markets that we serve and other companies that I started as we grew. And I read this script this morning and it lasted too long, so I'm going to ad-lib most of this going forward. Brief history, as you can see from the screen, we're a family company. At that point, we're a three-generation company. Started my father when he got out of the war in 1945. They did primarily concrete work and block work. And during that post-war boom, they also got into metal buildings and the old Quonset huts that some of you may remember. I came along as the third generation in 1966 when I graduated. And basically, I did the sales and the marketing, the estimating. My grandpa kept the books, and my father and my dad, they were in charge of building the buildings. I mean, they literally built them. They were known to be very hands-on and worked in the field with them side by side. The picture you see there with the building, that was our first headquarters, the 7,000 square foot building. We had 5 offices in it and a little warehouse in the back. And it was pretty typical of the kinds of buildings that we were building back then. The Ruscilli way pictured in the screen is basically the 10 commandments of the companies and the things that you needed to do if you were going to be an associate in our company or you were out. And for the sake of time, I won't get into that now, but question and answering, if you would like to talk about that, I'd be delighted to talk about the Ruscilli way. In 1966, the company was only doing about $650,000 worth of business a year. After being with the company for about a year, I realized that the customers really were looking for somebody who could do the whole thing for them. Everything from helping them find sites to working with the architects to building the building. Typically at that time, and it's still done today, an owner goes to an architect, they work with them for 6 months to a year, they design a building, they put it out to bid to contractors, usually takes another couple months, and many times they have to do the whole thing again when it's over budget. What we did was we came up with what we called design, build, construction. It was our new strategy. And our process was a little bit different. We worked with the owner. First, we looked over what he was doing. We come up with a specification because of all the buildings that we've built. And we gave him a price right then and there. Once he okayed the price, we started working immediately with either his architect or ours, and we designed the building to make sure it fit the budget that he had. So the clients just overwhelmingly liked this. On most projects, we were saving at least 6 months in time, and they didn't have to worry about their budget. It was guaranteed from day one. So we came up with this new design, build, smarter way to build, and then the problem became, how are we going to get this out in the marketplace? And what I started was what we call the Ruscilli report, which is little things that I wasn't aware of it that I picked up here when I was in marketing. We came up with a Ruscilli report, which is basically a quarter-page black and white ad that showed a picture of the building, little description of the building, and a quote from the customer. And it's always amazing what these customers would do. They would say unbelievable great things about you, and they know their name's going to be in the press. This is some of the early ones. This is some of the later ones that we do today. And I'd just like to read the one quote for you. This is from Automotive, the one to the right up here. It says, working closely with Ruscilli Construction Company in building our 83,000 square foot facility in New Albany Beauty Park was the most enjoyable design-build collaboration I have ever experienced, from start to finish. Not only did they complete the project in record time, 6 months, but it was also done within the budget and with first-class quality. Ruscilli treats their customers like family, and the final result is complete satisfaction. He goes on. But the point I'm trying to make is we came up with this kind of advertising, and people really read it because it was testimonials. It was from people in the community saying things. And the thing about it is what we did was we would run one ad when we got the job, showing the rendering of the building. We'd show one or two when it's under construction, when the red iron went up, and we'd show another when the building was completed. If we had, say, 5 jobs going, and you're running these 5 jobs with different ads at a time, it looked like there's 20 different buildings, and it was unbelievable. To the public, it looked like we were building all of Columbus, and our business just skyrocketed. And I guess what you need to understand is at this time, advertising was kind of a dirty word. You just didn't do that. Architects and engineers and even contractors frowned upon it. My competition used to, literally make fun of me for all the newspaper and magazine ads that we did, and especially when we'd run TV commercials on the major golf tournaments, because that was really a great audience for us. It was a fantastic time until the competition kind of figured out that advertising really does pay. But I give Findlay and the things that I learned in that class a lot of credit for coming up with that. This, James, shows other means of advertising. When it came to marketing, that was my thing. We bought an old truck to signify the age of the company, put our original name on it, and our people used to fight to drive it in the various parades in all the different communities around town. The hot air balloon, I used to say, if there was one place I could put a sign, I'd like to put it in the middle of the Ohio State Stadium on game day. Well, I figured out how to do it. We bought a hot air balloon, put our new logo on at the time, on all sides so that you couldn't miss who it was. We hired an expert pilot that was, 9 out of 10 times, he could fly that balloon right over the stadium. And I don't know if you've ever been in a hot air balloon, but you could kind of stall it, make it go up and down. It was unbelievable advertising. Did I blow it here? It was unbelievable advertising. Yeah, you can't do that today because of all the security, but it was great while it lasted. We also used to give it to charities. Whenever they had their main events, we would tether it up and down as people that came in and get them hopped up to bid on it for an auction. And it was, everybody wanted a balloon in these charity deals. It was just another thing that we did to bring ourselves the attention. You have to remember, going back when I started, we were just a little old company in a metal building on a crooked road in the back of a graveyard, believe it or not. So the idea was to make ourselves more visible to the community, to become more of a household name to the people that we wanted to get to. And as our company grew, we had people literally, we must have had 2 or 3 trailers with people in it, because there was no way we could fit them all into our office building. So we had the need to come up with a new facility. And that created another company. We went out, bought 100 acres along Roberts Road and I-270 in Columbus for a new facility, and this was created Ruscilli Investment Company, which owned the land. And this park in itself was an innovation because we differentiated ourselves from the other industrial parks. We had heavy covenants for your landscaping, and you had to go through an architectural review committee to make sure your building looked right and it was pleasing to the environment. So we couldn't have any orange and black buildings or anything like that. And this resulted in our building a new 35,000 square foot corporate office and warehouse for Ruscilli Construction Company that we completed in 1977. Our new facility was designed to be a design-build showcase. So when you walk in the door, you could see different kinds of ceiling, floor tiles, wall finishes. You could see offices that were very basic to semi-plush to what you wanted to blow your money on. Like my office was all hardwood paneling, and the one the executive wanted. And it was almost like a one-stop place for our clients. They didn't have to go all around town. When we were designing their building, they could say, this is what we want. And we even had it down where I could tell them how much a foot the paneling was, and we could pretty much tell them what their project was going to cost before it was ever started. So this was, again, meant to be a one-stop shop for them. My father, God bless him, he was a very conservative guy, to say the least. He was your typical grumpy contractor, very conservative. And when I showed him the rendering and the layout of this new building, I mean, he took one look at it and said, "Are you out of your mind?" He said, "Our customers aren't going to work with us anymore. They're going to think we're too expensive, and you're going to bankrupt the company." And life was a little tough then, wasn't it, dear? Dad didn't understand this. Where I came from, my opinion was, successful people like to work with successful people. And this wasn't just going to be a building. It was going to be a great marketing tool to take the company forward. Excuse me. Somehow, I got Dad to go along with it. We built the facility, and our volume doubled that year. And I think the next 4 years after that, it continued to double. Because, when we put that office right there on the freeway, it was like having this huge billboard that we didn't have to pay for. Again, it was another name recognition for the company. And we started becoming a very, very well-known company at that time. And I'll show you one little comical thing. When we were building it, we got so busy that I think we put the red iron up and we had to stop for like 2 months. We were just too busy to go back. And guess what happened? Started hearing all these rumors for the competition, finally caught up with them. They ran out of money. They're going bankrupt. So we got together and we talked about this. We said, let's turn the tables on them. So we came up with this ad announcing with pride the incompletion of our new home office building. And I never got so much attention out of an ad from our clients and just people in general. We thanked them, said thanks to you, we'll probably never get it done. But our customers come first. And again, it was just a marketing twist that we used. It's very important to note in the cycle of this company that it was a combination of this very visible building on the freeway, the design build strategy that we came up to differentiate ourselves from the other contractors, and the Ruscilli reports along with our new logo that really quickly transformed this little company into a company that now had a name brand recognition that is continuing today. My son wants to make a lot of changes, but he doesn't want to mess with the brand. He realizes the importance of it. Here's some of the major markets that we've served, and I'm going to try to go through these quickly, maybe. Higher education, we do we have a special team of people that just love to do higher education projects. Just quickly, Kuntz Hall is a massive renovation to a really ugly building on campus that looked like a prison. We turned it into a new offices and study areas for the, I think it was the environmental group at Ohio State. The middle is Scott Laboratory. It's kind of a campus within the campus at Ohio State University. That is for the engineering school. Hocking County, we built some dorms over there. On the lower part is OSU Academic Services and the parking garage. These are on Lane Avenue. And probably the most prestigious project we ever did was for the University of Findlay for the Kohler Recreation Center. It was really a thrill for me to be able to do something for our own university. Recreation, we've probably built every major clubhouse there is in Central Ohio. Soda Country Club, which is a massive renovation that we just completed about a year ago, has just been named one of the clubs in all the world, not just the United States, the entire world. And next to it is Murfield Village. We've been working for Jack Nicklaus from the first building that went up out there. We're in the process right now of, this got a pointer? No. Okay. How many of you have been to Murfield Village? Been to Memorial Tournament? Quite a few of you. If you were there last year, what you see there, most of it wasn't there. This year, when you come down 18, it's going to be almost like an amphitheater. Sure this doesn't have no clicker? Okay. Anyway, we're renovating. The old dining room is now a mixed grill, more of the lifestyle, the way people are going to like to live. They used to have a temporary tower for the CBS tower. Now it is built in next to an iconic clock tower that'll become kind of a theme when you see it on TV. And then there's the Nationwide Suites, which tie into the old pavilion, which is another building, with all seating on top. So it is going to be really very impressive, and Jack's excited about it. He told me, he says, if I don't do this now, it probably won't happen. But they're spending a lot of money to make Murfield look very special, and it is going to. These are just other clubhouses. We've done tennis clubs and ice rinks and handball courts and things like that, other recreational facilities. Multifamily senior housing, this is a sampling of things that we do. This is the biggest growing market that we have right now. In fact, it's now taken us in 17 different states. This is a case where when things got so bad in 07, 08, our business just dried up. The typical client, he sure wasn't expanding. He was laying off people. He was reducing his manpower. Office buildings were going vacant because everybody was trying to shrink up. So we got together and says, what are we going to do? The answer was, we got to follow the money, the government money. There was a lot of money that was being put into your elderly housing. And we had stayed away from it because that meant working with HUD, which is a whole lot of nasty red tape. They take 90 days, 120 days to pay you. It's just a nightmare. So we took something that everybody was running from, and we said, we're going to be the expert here. And we brought in people that understood HUD to work with their accounting departments. Make a long story short, today we have companies that are calling us, will you help us out? Will you work with us? Not will you give us a price on this facility, but will you work with us? And it's really exciting. In fact, my son is thinking about making that a separate company, something that he could spin off someday. Health memory care, assisted living, again, just samples of stuff that we've done. This is, as we all get older, and we are, this is only going to become a bigger market. Offices, we built a lot of both local and national headquarters for companies. I'll try and go faster here. Retail, we've done a lot of automobile dealerships and retail projects. Lower slide there is, how many have been to Easton Center in Columbus? Very many of you? Well, this is going to be another third of Easton that we're going to start this summer, and we're really excited about that project. K through 12 public schools, been a tremendous market for us. In the last 27 years since we've been tracking our schools, we have done just about 300 public school projects, and we've done 23 private school projects totaling about $3.2 billion worth of work. In fact, we just got another couple $100 million for Southwest schools that will be starting this summer as well. Bring your attention to the Wellington School. I'm proud of that. That is a private coeducational college prep school that a couple friends of myself started about 30 years ago, and it is just going fantastic. And for those of you who know me, it's kind of like an oxymoron for me to be involved in starting a school. Manufacturing and distribution, this has always been the hallmark of Ruscilli Construction. These are just some samples from Toso SMD, the Mid-Ohio Food Bank, Jake's Distribution Center and Office in Delaware, Ohio, and Animatic is the one that I read the quote on. Process manufacturing, in our company, the more technical it is, the more competitive we are, and we like this. This is, White Castle is a meat processing plant that we are doing in Dayton, Ohio right now. They're a good customer. Roxanne Laboratories is a pharmaceutical company and manufacturing it back. PharmaForce we just finished last year. It's mostly laboratory and again manufacturing. They do most of the generic drugs. They watch the patents when they're up. They're copying those drugs and produce them. And the one at the right is just the interior of a hyper plant. It's a pasta plant we built in Pennsylvania. Automotive manufacturing, huge break for the company, was Honda of America. Back when Honda was built, they built 1 million feet. Great big contractor, and they kind of felt like they got ripped off. Make a long story short, remind me to tell you the story in question and answer. But we got the project. We added 1 million square feet to Honda, and then we rehabbed the existing 1 million square feet. And this was a great entree, because when you do a good job for the Japanese, they remember it. We've done at least a couple dozen Japanese manufacturing and distribution plants for Honda's suppliers. In fact, I was just told last week we got another 350,000 square foot warehouse distribution for one of their suppliers that's going to be built in Marysville. Government and public, we've done a lot of landmark buildings, Amerifor and the Franklin Park Conservatory. I'm sure a lot of you have been to COSI on the riverfront, Science Museum. Franklin County Government Center, we've done a lot of jails and prisons in the state. Land development, one thing that I realized as we were growing is that if you control land, you can get more jobs. Because we had developers who controlled lots of industrial parks, and we didn't get to sniff those jobs, because if you're going to build it, you're going to build with them. Well, I'm not beyond copying somebody that does something right. And we started Ruscilli Development Company, which is a company that owned the land, and they would also lease buildings back to clients, because not everybody wanted to own their building. This happened to be one of our parks in Gateway. This is Perimeter Center East in Dublin. If you ever come into to Columbus from Route 33 at Avery Road. This is called Perimeter Center. It went so well, we bought land on the other side of the freeway, and it's sold out as well. In fact, we sold a lot of the land to the Methodist Hospital, built a big hospital right there. This is I should mention that because of the land, I didn't want to depend upon some realtor to promote our own property, so we started a real estate company whose job back then was to sell our property, which they did too good of a job in a way. But today, 90% of their work is totally independent of Ruscilli Construction Company. They just do a little bit of work for us. They're totally working for third-party clients. This happens to be Ruscilli Development Real Estate, have about 5,000 square feet in this building. It's a building that we built for lease. These are just some of the lease-back facilities, everything from distribution centers to offices that we've leased back to clients who didn't want to own. I'm not going to get into this unless you want to in Q&A, but it's things that our real estate development property management company do. And last but not least, fourth generation is here. This is a recent article that was in Smart Business, just I think it's this month's magazine, where they featured my son, Lou Ruscilli, who is now the CEO, my nephew, Tony, to the right, who is the president of the company, and the old guy's chairman right now. These are two really bright, aggressive guys. I mean, my son makes me look like I'm a caveman. He is so sharp. I'm very proud and I'm really excited for both of them. Together they have proven themselves just to be a dynamic duo, that's all you can say. And they're taking the company forward into new markets and doing things just like I did 47 years ago. Me as chairman, you know, I still get a lot of the dirty jobs that I got as a kid, but things are different. I call myself semi-retired. I no longer work 60 to 80 hours a week. I cut it down to 40. And one of those days I work for the poor and the homeless within the community. I really enjoy that and expect to expand that to a couple days probably in the next year or so. So I hope I haven't bored you too much with the construction business, but is there any questions you'd like to have about what I said or didn't say?